Okay.
not missing some people?
Who, like who?
The notification I got said that Julie Cloud was gonna be here. And I requested that, Julie McCormick be here.
Julie McCormick's no longer an employee.
Not sure what that has to do with it.
She can't be here because she's no longer an employee. If in fact you were on the hiring list or not. And I understand that when you asked her, she didn't give you a clear answer.
Well, she gave me a pretty clear answer.
Did she?
And we're talking about Julie McCormick here, right?
Yes. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
she said I was not on the list. I guess my big question is, the thing that I want to get answered is why I didn't get an interview.
It's strictly up to the supervisor when they look at that hiring list who they want to interview and who they
So
don't.
regardless of experience, training, anything, so this now becomes, instead of just going by whether I'm a classified employee or not, or whether I'm not on probation or disciplinary suspension, or no matter what my score is on the exam, it's just kind of, do I want to interview them or not?
Unfortunately, yes.
There is no objective criteria for that.
There's no law or rule that says who or who not to interview.
So based on my past work history, based on my score on the application, which was 100%, and based that I meet all these other requirements, then I'm going to have to assume that it's for some other reason other than my performance, which kind of narrows that list down, doesn't it, to age, retaliation.
We can only go by what Julie told
Right,
Julie.
she's conveniently not allowed to be here.
She's not allowed to be
Okay.
here because she's no longer an employee.
Right, but we started this process long before she was not an employee.
Perhaps Julie McCormick was not interested in having you on her team.
Okay, does that sound like a rational reason not to hire somebody?
It does.
Especially when somebody is just about to step down from that position?
I can say it does, and I can base that on 12 years of experience with the State Division of Human Resources. We got calls all the time from applicants saying, I'm number one on the list, I got 100, I got years of experience, I got this, and I didn't get an interview. Can you tell me why not? We don't know. When we get to the supervisor level, the supervisor would just say, well, didn't want him. There's nothing we could do to say, you've got to tell us a reason why. There's nothing that said. And it's as frustrating as you
So
look.
if I was black, I could add that to this list, couldn't I? Because you're not willing to give us any kind of a reason.
I think one thing that was a concern for her was the fact that he asked HR and was given a reason. You were on the list. And then he asked Julie and she said, you were not on the list. There's a serious discrepancy there, so who's telling the truth and who's lying?
Also, when I asked her, do you know why I wasn't on the list? And she said, no, I don't, but I will find out why.
And you were on the list. I saw the list. You know, like you said, I was caught off guard. I didn't know what to say, so I just said whatever. That's a pretty typical response, not just for here, but for supervisors throughout the state. They tend to do that.
Somebody's full of crap here, basically. This sounds so evasive. We don't know, we can't tell you. HR's known about this whole situation for 6 weeks, 2 months, and nobody ever bothered to even ask her.
Well, it looks like Julie Cloud did ask her. When I sent the list to Julie McCormick, I said, there's these employees that are state employees. They have a check mark by their name. You can choose to interview them. And I think you were the only one that was an internal employee, and I said, I tell every hiring supervisor that I deal with, you've got these internal employees, I recommend that you interview them.
According to policy, it says that's how it's supposed to work. Whenever practical vacancy shall be filled by the promotion of a qualified permanent employee of the department, that would be me. I was the only one. I didn't even get an interview.
What is your solution to this problem?
Actually, I really would like to know why. Because based on the lack of knowledge, I can only assume that it's age discrimination. There's nothing else in my record that would eliminate me from this position, other than my age.
I don't make those assumptions.
Oh, well, I mean, just
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to prove that it is, you just have to prove that it isn't. Because we're running out of options, aren't we? We're running out of reasons why this man was denied an interview. Certainly wasn't based on his past performance, was it?
I can see where you would think that, but you're asking me to speak for someone else, and I can't do that. I told you when we started this, I was not aware that you were interested in becoming a safety and security officer.
Even though you were her supervisor, you got nothing to say about it. Nothing to do with it.
No.
Okay. I guess, so what's next step?
The next
Mark
step-
Freckleton is the new safety and security supervisor.
And how did he get that job?
He took a voluntary demotion.
Just like I did, didn't I?
He took a voluntary.
Just like I did.
I'm telling you, he took a voluntary demotion.
Just like I did.
And Mark plans on doing interviews this week, if you're available.
So it's okay for him to do it, but not for me.
You're going back to what happened under a different supervisor. And I
No, I'm
can't-
talking about what had just happened in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Why was Mark allowed to take a voluntary demotion to a different position
Nobody else
when
interviewed
he
for the
was
job,
the
right?
only classified employee that wanted to take a voluntary demotion to safety and security? Why was he not given that?
Right.
Then that's his question.
There's no parity there.
I understand, but again, I cannot answer for Julie McCormick. I can't.
Somebody's gonna have to.
I'm being as honest as I can be. I did not know you wanted to take a promotion.
Oh, my.
But there will be interviews this week. And if you would
If
like.
I don't get an answer, I'm gonna get an answer one way or another. And I'm not sure I can even interview while I'm on it. Can I?
Yes, you can.
So I could come in this afternoon and take my defensive driver's class as well.
I wouldn't recommend that you do. You can interview while you're on. Or what we can do is Mark can delay hiring till you're available for interviews. So,
This is a pretty shady deal. I mean, anybody even from the outside looked at this whole situation, this whole scenario. What do you think their assumption would be? He met all the criteria, did everything he was supposed to do. He didn't get an interview. The person that denied his interview is no longer even available for questions.
I can understand.
It's a bunch of crap. You know it?
Again, I was unaware.
That's handy. But isn't it your job to be aware? I know if I use that excuse in my position, oh, I was unaware. It's your job to be aware. That's not an excuse. That's what we get paid for, is to be aware. At least that's what I'm told. Maybe that doesn't go uphill. Maybe that's just for us in the trenches.
if Julie, you'd say, we get Julie and you talk to Julie and she gives you the same response that she gave Julie Cloud.
I'm sorry.
Say say that we are able to get Julie in a group, Julie McCormick in a group to talk to you. And she gives the same response that Julie Cloud said she gave.
Mhm.
What's the next step then?
I guess I'd have to hear that. Because I have a feeling that when she was no longer worked here, I'm not sure how that works. I have a feeling, based on my experiences with other people, that they were told, you are not allowed to talk to any employees.
Okay.
That could be the reason why she's not answering any of my phone calls, my emails, or anything.
That could be.
That very well could be, could it not? Is that the reason?
But let's go back to my question. If Julie McCormick were to tell you the same thing that Julie Cloud said she said, where do we go from there?
I would have to depend on what she says. It sounds like you're orchestrating an answer here.
Well, I am curious. I really am curious because.
That's why I wanted her here. That's why I requested her at the meeting.
Yeah.
But you're saying, what if we get her to say what Julie Cloud said
No,
she said?
I'm not saying what if we get her. What if she says?
I'm
No,
like I
but
said,
no,
What if?
huh?
What if?
Okay. What I'm trying to do is what's a solution? Because I'm hearing right now that there isn't one,
Well, there is one. If she would have been here, we could have stalled her right now.
but there isn't one right now. Because
Not right
yours
now.
is what if she's not here, and
Sure.
she's not given an
And
answer.
you can't predict, at least I hope you can't predict
No,
what she is going to say.
of course not.
Of course not. All righty.
I mean,
Sure sounds like you can.
mm, but, you know, you're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Every time I talk to HR, I get that.
I can't speak for Julie McCormick.
Of course not.
But I can speak for myself. And you and I started together with this agency 19-some-odd years ago. And if you'll remember when you wanted to come back to this department, it was me that you looked up for help to get back in. And I brought you back in.
And I appreciate that.
Okay? Now, what my direct reports report to me and what they don't, you know, much as I'd like to have control over that, I don't always, okay? I don't always. I had no idea that you wanted to demote to the safety and security officer. But I have talked to Mark Freckleton this morning. He does plan on trying to interview this week because we have 2 vacancies to fill.
And what you're telling me basically is I just need to keep quiet because you're the reason I'm here.
I'm not saying that.
Well, why are you bringing that up, Betty? Why are you bringing that up that it was your generosity that got me here?
Because I am concerned about you and the impression that you have. Okay, I am, genuinely. Okay, I don't want you to feel the way that you're feeling, although I can understand. Okay, but there's nothing I can do to undo what was done.
I'll bet
Except
with the right,
perhaps
I'll bet
learn
with the
from
right
it.
situation, the right circumstances came up, I'll bet you could sure get her to tell me why. Except for what?
I said, what I can do is learn from this.
Yeah, in the meantime, that leaves me kind of hung out to dry.
Well, not necessarily if you want to interview this week.
Well, I have on Wednesday. How good do you think I'm going to interview this week?
It may be possible to get that around.
Well, if you're interviewing this week, I would guess. See, I have a little different take on the whole thing. You're willing to postpone interviews. I'm not. I know why we need interviews. We're short-staffed. That means people are in danger out there. If I say, oh, goddamn, I want an interview, I want you to wait till I'm coherent to have an interview, all that does is put the hiring process back another week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And in the interim period, the people I work with, the children that I'm hired to protect, are in danger because we're short-staffed again and still. Anybody ever remember working with kids here? Because it sure seems to be pushed way in the back these days. That's the last thing we ever talk about anymore is how are these kids doing? What's this affecting these kids? Or do we have enough staff to keep these kids safe? And I get memos saying, oh hell yeah, they're safe, and yet we only got 2 staff on. No, I'm not willing to postpone the interview process because we need staff hired and trained.
That's right.
So when do I get my interview?
If you're going to be available today and tomorrow, I'll have Mr. Freckleton give you a call.
That would be fine.
Okay?
Still not satisfied with the answers that you were proposed to me today, though. This was just avoiding it, if you ask me. Making excuses. And once again, it's not our fault.
So the next step, then, if you're not, if this doesn't solve it, the next step is to go to the director. In this
Excuse me.
process.
Sure.
We do have
She
timelines.
likes
that we
talking
need
like
to-
me.
That is the next step.
Well, go for it. She does like enjoy talking.
You'll be available today by phone.
Yeah,
The reason for the urgency this week of Mark Freckleton interviewing is because of our vacancies.
I know.
Okay.
I'm fully aware of that.
And we're doing the best that we can to fill our vacancies. We are. We are.
Man, there's been vacancies for a month that I haven't been interviewed for. I never could understand why when somebody gets 2 weeks' notice, the hiring process doesn't even start until after that. Thought that was probably the idea of giving 2 weeks' notice, and so, man, we could get on top of it. We could have somebody almost ready to step into that position by the time their time's up. Never could, never could do that.
It takes longer than 2 weeks, unfortunately, because you have to go through the announcement
Oh, I
process,
don't
the
even
scoring
start.
process. Actually,
I haven't
that,
seen announcements come out till after the person's 2 weeks' notice was up. Before the announcement ever materializes. Case in point, Smythe. It's a different subject, but it just doesn't make sense. It's not efficient. But we are the government.
because I'm the one that puts out the announcements, and I start the minute I know, start the process of getting the announcement put together. Sometimes it does take longer if we have to update the exam for post questions.
Yeah.
Hopefully never will.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.